Testimony Tuesday with Marcie Erickson. Today on The Simple Truth, we consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong, chaste heart of Saint Joseph. I'm your host, Jim Havens, and our guest today is Marcie Erickson, Catholic wife, mother, and executive director of Grace Center Foundation. You can find it over at gracecenterfoundation.org. Marcie Erickson, welcome to The Simple Truth. How are you today?
I'm doing well. It's such an honor to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great blessing for us to have you with us. We're excited to dive in just a moment. But first, I want to encourage folks, if you do enjoy listening to The Simple Truth and the other great shows that are broadcast on the Station of the Cross, please do support our 2025 Fall Appeal. Many easy ways to donate. You can simply return the envelope from our recent mailing or go to thestationofthecross.com or use the iCatholic Radio mobile app. You can also call in your pledge weekdays, 8 to 5 p.m. Eastern at 1-877-711-8500. We thank you for your generous support. All right, we always begin at the beginning. So, Marcie, what was your early life like, your family, the culture that you grew up in?
Well, Jim, I was born and raised in a place called Naples, Florida, and I was raised in the church. I have wonderful, devout parents, and as I went through high school, I began searching on my own of what the Lord was calling me to do with my life. And I was a senior in high school when I prayed a specific prayer asking God if He wanted me to become a religious sister or go to college. And I heard an audible voice, and I heard this voice say, "Neither, I want you to be a missionary." I had never met a missionary. I didn't really know what that meant, but in my mind, I had a vision of Africa. And so I began at 18 years old, and it's been such an amazing adventure.
Wow, amazing is right. And so, let's pick it up from there. What happened next? What would you like to share with us unfolding by God's grace from there?
So it's actually quite difficult to find a mission organization that will accept an 18-year-old to come volunteer. And so I applied to many different mission organizations, and I ended up being accepted by one organization that had volunteer opportunities. I think it was about 8 different countries at the time. And so I just simply said, please send me somewhere in Africa. And they chose for me to go to Ethiopia. And I was volunteering as an English teacher, a school there, a large Catholic school. And it was a beautiful experience, a very challenging experience being at the time I was 19, I was over there. So I was there from 19 to 20 years old. And it was in the middle of a 5-year famine within Ethiopia. And every day there were hundreds and hundreds of starving people lined up. And I remembered before I went over there, I thought to myself that nothing was going to shock me, that the Lord was going to go before me and He would make the path straight so that I wouldn't be shocked over the things that I saw. But there was nothing that could have prepared me for what I was going to see. And it was very, very shocking. You know, some of these babies that were 2 years old with a mouthful of teeth that weighed 8 pounds, you know, the size of a newborn. And there were many times where we would be feeding these children and I would ask one of the sisters, "Oh, where is this baby today?" And they would say, "Oh, she died last night." And that was what would happen as well with my students. I had over 300 students and I would ask, "Where is this student today?" "Oh, they got malaria. They died." It was a very, very difficult time. And so because it was so difficult and I was young and even the surroundings were a little bit rough, I thought, you know, for sure the Lord is not calling me to spend my life in Ethiopia. And so I ended up going to all these different countries in Africa, feeling like just praying, just discerning, "Lord, are you calling me to Kenya?" And I spent some time in Kenya. I was in Uganda. I was in Rwanda. I was in Congo, Tanzania. And then after 5 years, I felt like I needed to go back to Ethiopia to visit my former students and to just reconnect with them. And upon arriving back in Ethiopia after that 5-year absence, I knew that this was absolutely where the Lord was calling me to be. And I said even more specific prayers about specifically where in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a large country. It's currently a population of about 130 million people. And so I prayed specifically, asking God where He wanted me to be. And God answered very prayers. And I ended up in a town called Bahir Dar, Ethiopia, about a 9-hour drive north of the capital city.
Incredible. Marcie Erickson is with us, and you can find her and her good work over at Grace Center Foundation. .org. So many questions running through my mind, but I do want to just take one step back quickly here in this first segment and ask, because you had such a sense, and I'm guessing you probably still do, of discernment, of hearing the voice of the Lord, of having a heart that is open to receive His good promptings and to be docile, to be faithful. Anything unique in your upbringing that you want to share? Is there anything you can kind of put your finger on and say, this is why I sort of developed in that way, that I could be praying when I'm 18 and hearing the voice of the Lord and answering yes to go become a missionary in Africa? Anything in that upbringing that jumps out to you?
Sure. One of the things is that my mom is like a pillar in the pro-life community. Marcie Erickson, she helped start community pregnancy clinics. She helped start Sunlight Home. She helped start the community abstinence program, the abstinence education program. And so I was always kind of watching her and having her as the example. But I also had a very profound time when I was in high school, and I met a young man that I really believed that the Lord was calling us to marry, and we had a wonderful relationship. And unfortunately, when we were both 16 years old, he actually died of cancer. But before he died, he helped me to set myself on the right path. Like I don't even know where I'd be today if it wasn't for him and all the hours that he spent talking with me and sharing the love of God with me. And at the time, I just thought, why is he doing this? And it was just such a miraculous time for me to be able to really learn that the Lord does love me. He cares for me. He created me. He's called me. And that's how I feel about all the people that we serve in Ethiopia, that He's called each of them. And that's what we try to impart to every person that we meet, all the people that are listening now. God has called everyone to a big plan and a big purpose. Yeah,
incredible. So when you were first in Africa, Ethiopia, and then other African countries, and so you're seeing, you're experiencing the extreme poverty that was all around you, and various difficulties, like saying someone, there's a child here one day and they're gone the next. What did that do with your relationship with God? Did you have a difficult time? I mean, seeing the problem of evil, I guess, in a new way. Where did you go in your heart, I guess, with that experience? And did it bring you closer to God?
I would say in the end, it definitely brought me closer to the Lord. But during the time when I was in it, it was a very hard season. It was a number of years where I struggled to understand why bad things happen to good people, why people born in Ethiopia was born in America. I've never had a starving. And why were these people born here where they were born into a place with no food, no running water? And I had to grapple with that and realize that God has called me to share the stories of the people there, to, as much as I can, walk with them, be with them, show them the love of Christ. And it was a period of several years, and I had so many people that really walked with me during that time where it was quite a bit of suffering. And, I just thank and praise God. He didn't give up on me, and I continued, and some of it was in obedience and some of it was just day by day, trying my best to say yes to the Lord. And, I've just met so many key people throughout my life that have done amazing things for me. For example, one of the people, he's like a father to me, Dr. Gary Fusco. He lives in Naples as well. And so he was giving me a lot of spiritual advice, especially when I was suffering. I met a wonderful religious brother who walked with me through a lot of pain and loss. And then when I felt God launching me into what at the time felt like a second calling, I felt equipped because of these wonderful people that have walked alongside with me. And at that time, after seeing so many babies that had been abandoned at the first location where I worked, the first center, and at the time they didn't have an orphanage, they didn't have a place for these babies. And so they would do whatever it took to try to find the mother that abandoned the child or try to find a relative. And it was such a heartbreaking thing for me to see. Just at the end of the day, we're locking up doors and there's a baby laying there. And many times the babies were very severely malnourished as well. And so I really felt when I was coming back to Ethiopia and felt that this was where the Lord was calling me to be, in the vision that I felt like the Lord gave me was that he wanted me to foster and adopt as many children as I could personally take on. So I went into that very strongly and very excited about the future of what that looks like.
Wow, amazing. Marcie Erickson is with us, and we're going to hear more when we come back from the break. What happened next? So excited to find out more of what God's been doing in the life of Marcie and in the good work that has unfolded since. So we're going to hear all about it, as much as we can get in today with Marcie Erickson. In the meantime, GraceCenterFoundation.org, GraceCenterFoundation.org. You can learn more about the good work being done there. You can certainly support that good work by going there as well, GraceCenterFoundation.org. But yeah, maybe as we head into the break, just think about how open are our hearts to really hear from God today. He surely wants to speak to us and guide us. Are we open to receive it? Are we willing to go where he sends us? We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
iCatholic Mobile is a proud sponsor of the Station of the Cross. Your cellular service should work when you need it. Dependable calls, reliable data, and customer service you can count on. iCatholic Mobile provides nationwide 5G service, unlimited talk and text, and free roaming in Canada and Mexico. And every plan helps sustain the Station of the Cross, keeping faith-filled programming on the air. More info at iCatholicMobile.com.
Back to the Simple Truth. Jim Havens here. Testimony Tuesday with our guest today, Marcie Erickson, Executive Director of Grace Center Foundation, GraceCenterFoundation.org. We're going to get right back to Marcie in a moment, but if you are buying or selling a home, there's an easy way to help the Station of the Cross at the same time. Real Estate for Life has 1,400 experienced, morally grounded agents in the U.S. and Canada. Visit realestateforlife.org to find a Christ-centered, experienced realtor near you. And don't forget to mention the Station of the Cross. All right, Marcie, we left off. You are in Ethiopia. You are in a situation where you're seeing babies, children, abandoned, malnourished, starving, dying. The sense on your heart is God calling you to foster and adopt as many of these little ones as you possibly can. What happened next?
Yeah, so I just pray the Lord would bring me all the children that he wanted me to raise. And I very quickly received 3 children. My first son came to me when he was 2 years and 9 months old. 3 weeks later, I received James when he was 13 days old. And 3 weeks later, I received Amanu when he was 3 months old. And after that, I actually decided I needed to do the process of adopting them officially so that if anything ever happened, they would be with me. And I did the adoption process, and let's put it this way. I did the adoption process in Ethiopia. It took me 11 years to complete the process in the U.S. But I did the adoption process within Ethiopia, and within days, people were asking me to take more children. And I felt very overwhelmed. I was still single at the time and felt, maybe there's an orphanage that we can send these children to. And from what I saw, there was no place for these children to go. And so the people would say, well, where can we go? And I was laying in bed one day and just saw this vision in my mind of a center where these children could be properly loved and cared for, where we would have one caregiver for every 2 to 3 infants, where these children would be properly fed and nourished and receive the love and care that they needed. And in my mind, I just said, okay, Lord, if this is coming from you, then you'll give me the people to help me run this. And I called to some friends of mine that were living in the capital city at the time. And I said, look, I have this crazy idea. And they stopped me in the middle of that sentence and said, we'll move up there to help you start. And so God answered that prayer within less than 5 minutes. And that was in 2006. We began with about 5 foster children and grew very, very quickly. And the whole plan of what has happened at this ministry we call Grace Center is just simply helping people to live how God's called them to live. And this is why it's grown so quickly, because our goal is not to try to take children from their families. We want them to remain with their families if that's possible. So how can we help that mother? How can we help the single father? How can we help this couple have a solid marriage? How can we help the elderly grandmother raising her grandchild? And so it looks different for every single situation. And so we grew very quickly. We went from 5 foster children to a few thousand within a couple years. And now it's almost been 20 years and we serve over 50,000 individuals a year. And so it's about constantly just saying yes to what are the genuine needs that are surrounding me that will help us to see these people doing what God's called them to do in their life.
Wow. Marcie Erickson, GraceCenterFoundation.org. So connect the dots for us on how this is my hunch on this, is that this is an outgrowth of fruitfulness, flowing from your relationship with Jesus, in particular, flowing from your relationship with our Lord in the Holy Eucharist. I guess connect the dots just in the sense of, so the church is present there in Ethiopia. You're there plugged in as a member of the body of Christ, and there's a fruitfulness that's taking place in your relationship with the Lord that kind of unfolds in the midst of all of this, so that our Lord is becoming incarnational in you, the hands and feet of Christ present on the ground there in the midst of the need and the suffering, and the Holy Spirit guiding you step by step to be a leaven of authentic love in this society there, and other people hear the vision, and that prompts them to join in and help out. And so it's kind of unfolded like that. Would you say that's somewhat accurate? Would you want to revise that in any way? What can you say about how this connects to the church, to our Lord in the Holy Eucharist?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really been such an honor to just be used as much as I can as the hands and feet of Christ. And the Catholic Church, Ethiopia, is a very, very small number of people, especially the area where we are. Was praying about where the Lord wanted me in Ethiopia. I met with a wonderful priest, and he said, we really need help in this town called Bahir Dar. And so I went to visit for a few days, and God just made it clear that was where he wanted me. And amazingly, this priest is now our bishop. And so I'm very good friends with him. It's just, we have this amazing story where he'll often, like, almost jokingly say, like, he took this chance on this young single woman with this wild idea about caring for as many children as she possibly could. And he just was obedient and saying yes, and trusting that God was going to use it. And he could have turned around, and he told me several years afterwards how many people came to him saying, tell her to stop, tell her only to help 30 people, tell her to do this. And he said, no, let her be. And this is our amazing Bishop, Lesano Christos Mateos. And he often will joke that he serves a diocese that's the size of Italy, and he should really need a helicopter to be able to go and say mass for the people. But it's that the actual numbers of Catholics in our area are very small. It's mostly Orthodox, Ethiopian Orthodox Christian.
Okay, yes. Anything else you want to share with us, I guess, about the culture to help us to understand? I mean, I don't know a lot about what's going on the ground in Africa. Sadly, I wish I did know more, but I guess the things that we have heard, at least I have heard, probably others the same, is that the church is very vibrant in Africa, that there really is a great renewal of faith that's taking place, and the Catholic Church is right at the center of that in Africa. At the same time, as you mentioned, there's extreme poverty, and what else? Can you fill in the blanks for us to help us to really understand what it's like there?
Sure. Ethiopia is a beautiful country, and the landscape itself, the weather is beautiful, the mountains, the valleys, the lakes, the rivers, everything is just a very, very beautiful country. It's a little bit unique for other places in Africa where I've been, where, the church is like 90% of the population in many of these countries in Africa. I don't know if it still is the case, but when I was there, for example, Kenya, Uganda, it was the majority. Because Ethiopia is an ancient country with the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, that still holds a lot of the population is still primarily Ethiopian Orthodox Christian, but it's still a very vibrant group of people. And the Catholics as well, and the Protestants as well, they love, church is easily 3 to 5 hours every Sunday. And then, daily, at least an hour, 2 hours. They're just very, very devout. We had one of our our students that ended up being actually the smartest girl in all of Ethiopia. Her test scores were above and beyond. She was an orphan, and we helped send her to school, and she ended up going to medical school. And she said she never went a day without going to church, without thanking the Lord for her journey, for where he brought her. And I think about how in the United States, how many college campuses do you go to where people don't even think to go for where they are? It's such an important and an amazing lesson for us, I feel like, to constantly be learning from them. But Ethiopia has a very rich tradition and history, and it goes back to Genesis and the Old Testament, Solomon, Queen Sheba. And so they have the emperors in the line from the Queen of Sheba. And so with this history, there becomes a lot of almost turmoil between people groups. And that's what we're seeing on the ground at the moment. It's a very difficult situation. This has been ongoing for a couple years in our specific area. And we just pray for a change, for the people to have peace there. But our staff, we have almost 300 staff at our project now, and our staff are absolutely amazing. They're brave. They come to work every day, regardless of gunfire, bombings, grenades, and they just know that they're doing what the Lord wants them to do, and that's the most important thing for them. And so I always try to remember to pray for their protection, and I'll always try to learn from their amazing example as well.
Yeah. So number one, let us pray for Marcie and for her good work, her staff, everybody there in that area in Ethiopia, for peace, and also for, God's holy will to be done there, but certainly protection on Marcie, her family, the staff, the workers, the people they're ministering to, all of that. And if you can, support the good work monetarily, if you can, gracecenterfoundation.org, gracecenterfoundation.org, to help out and to learn more as well. But Marcie, back to your story in this. So in that almost 20 years of time since you began this work, you mentioned earlier that that you were kind of discerning vocation as a young person, senior year of high school, called to be a missionary. And so then you are a missionary, but still you're not married. You weren't in the religious life. At that time, as things started rolling in 2006, was there still some vocational discernment going on? Maybe he was actually calling you to religious life, or a sense that no, he's got a marriage for me. He's gonna show me the right person, present me the right person. What was the thought on that, and how did that go navigating all of that discernment?
Yeah, so I always prayed for my future husband, my future spouse, and I really felt after the first year in Ethiopia that God was not calling me to religious life. I had the experience of living with religious sisters for almost a year, and just thought, I really know God is calling me to be a mother, fully. And not that religious sisters are not mothers to many children. But one of the things that our bishop remembers was the very first time I came and talked to him, he said, well, what if some man comes along and he doesn't want your adopted children? I said, well, then he's not the husband that God has called me to have in my life. And that was something that was very revolutionary for Ethiopia, because in Ethiopia, it's quite common that when a husband comes along, the woman will do everything to keep the husband. And so he was moved by that, even though that seems to be a common way of us thinking. And so I was very blessed that I did end up getting married a couple years after I adopted the children.
Yeah, we're going to be back. We hear the music. We're going to be back after the break with Marcie Erickson. We'll pick up where we left off here, but vocational discernment, right? This is a big aspect of our young lives. For those that might be in the midst of that right now, stay faithful, right? And stay very confident in God and in His good plan for you. He's got the best for you. Just draw close to Him as He is certainly drawing you to Him. Yield to that. Surrender to that. What a beautiful time to surrender your heart fully to the Lord as He prepares your heart fully for whatever vocation it is He's preparing you for. We're going to be right back with Marcie Erickson. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Marcie Marcie Erickson, sharing some of her personal story with us today and the good work that she has been doing as Executive Director of Grace Center Foundation, gracecenterfoundation.org. Support their good work there, gracecenterfoundation.org. We're going to get right back to Marcie, but first, don't forget about iCatholic Mobile, the only Catholic mobile phone company in the U.S. today. When you subscribe to iCatholic Mobile, you do help fund the Station of the Cross. Check out iCatholic Mobile, iCatholicMobile.com. So, Marcie, you were sharing with us right before the break the story of meeting your husband and the unfolding of that. Anything else to share with us on that? I suspect the Lord did bring you someone who was very much on board for adopted children that you already had adopted, and then to dive in. I would suspect this good work with you. Tell us more.
Yes, he's a wonderful and amazing man, Sefino Brahan Mengistu. He's from Ethiopia, and he actually knew my oldest daughter when I was adopting her. He knew her biological family. And so a year after I adopted my 3 boys, I received my daughter when she was 5. And as I was doing the adoption process in the court, Sefu, my husband at the time, I didn't know him, he showed up to just see how the process was going. And I said it would have been great if the lawyer that I hired showed up. The lawyer never showed up. And so I'm standing there at the court going, what do I do for this adoption? And so he went into the judge and he said, I'm not a lawyer, but can I help her with her process? And the judge said, sure. And so he did our adoption process for us. And a year later, I ran into him and I asked him what he was doing with his life. And he said, well, I'm going to law school so I can help more people how I helped you. And Ethiopia is not really a dating culture. So I knew that he loved my children, and we decided to get married. Within 3 months, we were married. And since then, we've had 8 more beautiful children. And so our oldest is 23 and our youngest is a year and a half. Wow. And so it's been such a huge blessing.
Incredible. Yeah. And so with family life then, growing family there in that area, how did that change things? One thing I would think a lot of people would maybe wonder is, as you're talking about sort of the conflict that exists and the dangers that exist in that area, does that change anything as your family's growing? Obviously, everybody wants to be safe. I don't know. What was it like? How did it change things as the family began to grow?
So there have been times where we've been there and it's been in the midst of terrible conflict and we hear gunfire and it's very hard. But through wisdom, we've at times had to stay in the United States longer than we had planned. But I'm so grateful to God that he gave us all the right staff that are running everything there here. That's been just such a huge blessing, because most organizations, what happens when the founder or the foreigner leaves is that the organization closes until there's peace or until the doors open for them to come back. But we've been able to see our project continuing to run. And as far as I know, in our region, which is about 30 million people, we're the only program that's still running. That's doing what we do. We're actually one of the only programs in the entire country that does what we do. And that's just because we help people based off of what is God calling this person to do and how can we help them reach that, rather than saying, okay, let's plug them into this program. Let's put them in this. So we have many different programs. We have a school, we have a feeding program, we have rent assistance, we have a prison ministry, we have an orphanage, we have sponsorship, we help people with housing. We do everything, but it's based off of how can we help this person be who God called them to be. And we don't have a number where we cap it off. We say, okay, God, you know who you're bringing us to today. And we are just more than happy to say yes to the people that you brought us on this day.
Beautiful. Marcie Erickson is with us, gracecenterfoundation.org. Grace Center, as Marcie has already shared with us, started in 2006. Began with a vision to serve children who are orphaned and abandoned. What began with 5 foster children now serves over 50,000 people annually in a large variety of ways, always seeking to share the love of the Lord as the needs of the people are being met. Again, gracecenterfoundation.org. Marcie, anything else to share about the spirituality of that is there, that the work flows from. Anything unique? I think about the missionaries of charity and Saint Teresa of Calcutta, Mother Teresa, and think about their spirituality, which was so it was so distinct, so prominent, so beautiful. The sparse, just the crucifix on the wall with the eye thirst. Is there anything I would say unique in the spirituality in the way that you guys do the work there with Grace Center Foundation?
We've known since the beginning that God is the one doing it. And so we have to pray through every moment. There's a lot of people that'll say, oh, all I can do is pray or just pray. And I feel like that's the best we can do. If I can spend my day in prayer, if I can spend hours in prayer, then it's going to change the hearts of more and more people than if I'm running around busy doing many different things. And I've realized that I've realized through time that God, it's a calling that God has called me to pray with people and to pray for people. And it's such a blessing because he really does want to have that ongoing conversation with us, that ongoing continual connection. And, he's present in the Eucharist. He is fully there. And so I think we always start our day with prayer amongst our staff. And we say, who did you see this morning that's suffering, that needs prayer? Do we have any of our people that we're serving that are in the hospital? Did we receive any new babies? And we offer all these things, and then we start our day. And it's always amazing because I can never imagine how God is going to do all that we do on the day. And then it's just by the end of the day, I think, how did that all happen in one day? We have just so many amazing things, and there's so many wonderful people. And it's just been such a blessing to see how God truly does love every single person on the earth and died for each one of them. And so it's about obedience, sacrifice, and as much as we can, being in that constant communion with the Lord.
Yes, yeah, and has what role, I guess, has our Blessed Queen Mother Mary played in all of this, and any other particular intercessors among the saints that you really have come to rely on?
Well, initially, when I first began, I had love for Saint Joseph because a lot of people didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing as a single woman. And I prayed to Saint Joseph that he would be the father for my children, that he would help me to meet my husband, that, just different things. And so I really felt like that was amazing. In fact, as I traveled through all these countries and I was really discerning, where does the Lord want me? I would show up at the next ministry only to see that the church is called Saint Joseph. The school is called Saint Joseph. It was constant. And so that was really amazing. And, I think Mary is such an amazing mother of God that we need to honor her, and I think that there's a lot of places that don't do that. I feel very blessed that in Ethiopia, with the Orthodox population, they have so many days where they celebrate Mary, they celebrate who she is and her love for her people, their church, how she's our mother. And it's amazing. Her birthday, 2 days every month, all these other days in between. And so I always ask them, so what is today's celebration? Oh, Mary. Okay. Yes, let's do that. So it's really beautiful. It's beautiful to see that heart for the people and their love too.
Yes. Yeah. Marcie Erickson is with us, Executive Director of Grace Center Foundation. Again, gracecenterfoundation.org is where you can learn more and support the good work there. Marcie, anything in terms of the current needs of Grace Center Foundation right now that you'd want to just encourage people, if they can, if they're able to support and help out, what it is that would really be helpful right now?
Sure. We just appreciate everyone that prays for us, number one, and also that is able to contribute. It's the reason why we're doing what we do. And so we serve thousands and thousands of people, anyone that the Lord is bringing to us. And we do that based off of the generous donations of many people. And so we're very, very grateful. And, I think it's really important for me to share a little bit more about some of the different aspects of Grace Center. One of them is a more recent program that we've taken on, which is we developed an emergency phone line. So a woman can call or text this number when she either feels like she has to have an abortion or she feels like she needs to abandon her baby. And so we are able to talk to that woman and see her change her mind. And to this day, every single woman that's called us that was considering abortion has chosen life for her baby. And we've seen thousands and thousands of lives saved through this. This is something that's very revolutionary for Ethiopia because Ethiopia has no 911, no emergency numbers, no hotlines of any sort. And we were able to start that because the Lord just showed me a vision of how we can reach more people, how we can see more people saved and not perish. And so there's that. And then there's also our prison ministry in Ethiopia. When a mother goes to prison, her children actually go to prison with her and they grow up in the prison. And we are the ministry that is supporting all the children in Ethiopia that are growing up in prison. So we send all of those children to school, and we've seen these amazing, amazing turnarounds with these kids that, when we first met them, all they wanted to do was to commit another crime to come back to prison. They never wanted to leave the prison because it was the only home they ever knew. And after meeting them, after talking with them, after praying with them, after sending them to schools, for example, one young man is now an engineer. His mom is out of prison and she became an Orthodox nun. Basically, it's a monk, but a nun in the Orthodox Church. And so we have these amazing testimonies, these wonderful stories. And it's always about reaching that person on an individual basis, one-on-one. We still receive many abandoned babies, but we also started a program for adoption within Ethiopia, encouraging Ethiopian families to adopt children. And it's been extremely successful. When we first started it, we just thought that adoption was something that only foreigners did. And we said, no, adoption is something that God does. And you need to pray about that. And so we've seen just so many couples that were unable to conceive or always wanted to have more children that are coming to us and adopting children. And so we continue to receive these babies that are abandoned. Sometimes even within 2 weeks or a week, we'll have 11 new babies that are found on the road, and they bring them to us and we care for them. And actually just not too long ago, we received a baby who was 2 pounds, 8 ounces. And he was initially brought to the hospital, and the hospital said, bring him to Grace Center because if he comes to the hospital, he'll likely die, but Grace Center will be able to take care of him. And we pray for his life, and our staff fed him every 30 minutes around the clock. And within 2 weeks, this little baby had gained 8 pounds. And so we see these miracles, these just transformations. And in this little baby, he came to us on Easter, so we named him Tensai, which means risen. And our staff are the ones that often will name our children that come to us abandoned. And so we just have these amazing, wonderful moments of seeing these people just thriving and growing. And we can't do it without so many people that partner with us. So thank you so much, Jim, for this wonderful opportunity. It's been such a blessing to share with you.
Absolutely phenomenal. Marcie Erickson with us. We've still got one more segment to go. So when we get back, we're going to give Marcie the floor. Anything else she wants to share with us today? So we'll be all ears, looking forward to that. But do want to give out that website one more time. Maybe you sense a good prompting to support this good work in prayer, certainly, but also by giving a gift of any kind. GraceCenterFoundation.org, GraceCenterFoundation.org. So oftentimes you want to give to something, but you're not sure if it's really going to get there and make an impact. Well, we're hearing right here from Marcie, Executive Director of this good work. It's going to make an impact. It's going to go right to where the needs are. GraceCenterFoundation.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Marcie Erickson, sharing some of her personal testimony as well as her good work, the good work of the Grace Center Foundation, of which she is Executive Director. You can find them over at GraceCenterFoundation.org. You can support the good work there as well, GraceCenterFoundation.org. All right, final segment here. Down the stretch we come. There's lots of questions that are still stirring in me, but want to make sure to give you the floor, Marcie, so that anything else that's stirring in you, we can definitely hear today. Anything else you want to share with us, feel free.
Sure. Well, I'm always happy to answer questions as well. I just want to say that it's just been such a blessing and an honor to just do what the Lord has called me to do. This last time we were in Ethiopia, it was very challenging because the unrest in our area is still very prevalent. And so we actually, for the first time ever, we rented a house in the capital city. And in the morning, I would fly from the capital city to our town, which has a very small airport. In fact, the airport looks like a bomb has gone off inside of it. And that's because it has. It was bombed about 5 years ago and they never repaired it. And so I'm out of all the people, to be honest, no one is traveling by car anymore on this road because it's so dangerous. So everyone is doing these flights. It's an hour flight. So it's an hour to Grace Center. It's an hour back to Addis Ababa. So I'd fly out in the morning. I'd fly back in the evening. And it was just such a different experience. And I was the only foreigner pretty much every single flight. There was one flight where I saw a couple of other foreigners, but it was just, I felt like such a blessing that I still got to be able to do what I felt like what God was calling me to do in that time and really encourage our staff. And the amazing part was that our staff were coming up to me saying, I can't believe you're here. I can't believe you're here in the middle of this terrible time. And they were so touched by it. And all I could think about was, you all are here all the time. You all are the ones that are committed, that are, I'm committed as well, obviously, but they are the ones that don't, not even for a day, not even for a moment, walk away. And so it's been really neat to be able to encourage them as well and to continue praying with people. One of the things I do is I spend a lot of time praying and counseling people one-on-one and just seeing people's lives just completely changed and transformed. I show them the crucifix. I know someone here, Families for Christ, at Woodworkers Cabinet, they make these beautiful crucifixes, and I bring a bunch of them back to Ethiopia. And I'll show this woman, I'll say, who is this? And they'll say, Jesus. And, okay, what did he do? Tell me the story that you know. And I'm able to talk with them. And so many times these women are you just see tears flowing down their face because I don't think anyone has ever taken the time to just sit with them one-on-one and talk with them and to hear their story. And so much of what they've been through, I can't even imagine. I don't know how they're still standing, but they are. And the transformation that we see in these women especially is just absolutely phenomenal.
Wow. Marcie Erickson at Grace Center Foundation.org. Anything to say about one thing that I wonder about? You mentioned the hotline for women who are thinking about abortion, and so immediately my antenna kind of goes up and thinks along those lines. So is abortion is that a popular thing there? Is it legal there? We think of Africa being better than us morally, in that way, that they would value their children much more than sadly what we see in our nation. Their preborn children, they would have a sense of the sacredness of life, even though with the extreme poverty that obviously makes things difficult for born children as well as preborn. But tell us more about that landscape there. And also we think about, at least I do, about places like, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and how their view of trying to combat poverty is with lots of abortifacients and contraception and trying to flood these things into Africa. Maybe they're well-intended. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but definitely not the answer. Seems to make problems even worse. What do you see on the ground there with respect to all of this?
Yeah, Ethiopia used to be extremely pro-life. You just had to have a very simple conversation with someone, show them the development of the baby in the womb. They would say, I would never want to hurt this baby. I would never want. Now, there has been a huge push over the last 20 to 30 years, just make abortion common. And you can give those conversations, Bill and Melinda Gates and other places, maybe you can give them the benefit of the doubt, but I personally don't. I think it's very, very evil what is happening. They have made abortion so common. It is absolutely heartbreaking. And because I'm a foreigner, when I'm there and I'm interviewing people for jobs, they believe what I want to hear is about how they've helped people to have abortions. So, for example, one time I was interviewing someone for a social work position, and she worked at a local high school, rural local high school. I said, so what do you do? And I'm thinking she helps people if they need glasses. She helps them get glasses. If she, I'm just trying to think, if two kids get into a fight, she tries to break up the fight or talk to them. She says, I refer people for abortions. You're a high school guidance counselor. And I said, how many people? And she said, about 30 a month in a rural, small school. And my head is spinning. And so we've tried our best to be on the front end of this. So we took, the curriculum that my mom and other wonderful people helped to develop here in Florida, and we translated it into Amharic, the abstinence curriculum. We were given an ultrasound from the community pregnancy clinics one time, and I went over with the ultrasound, and that was amazing. And so we've always tried to be on the front end of it. It's very, very sad, the amount of money that gets pumped in from the United States and Europe that is pushing this evil agenda, and the amount of people that have been slaughtered throughout the world. Obviously the United States, Ethiopia, everywhere in the world. I think it's just the single largest heartbreak to our Lord. And I love what Mother Teresa says, that saying that there's too many children is like saying there's too many flowers. And that's what I believe. And so when we are able to reach these women when they're pregnant, they are still very easy to convince to keep their babies. And so we're trying more and more to find more ways to reach them. And the phone line has been a great way to reach them, but also just through friends that they know. Many people will confide in one friend that they're pregnant and they can bring them to us. And so we've seen a huge turnaround of people's minds and hearts with that, because the people themselves are not pro-abortion. They've just been told this is what you need to do. And we say, well, why? And they say, because I don't have any money. And we say, well, why don't you keep your child? And this is what we'll help you do. And they say, okay. And it's so simple. We pray with them. And we've had really just lately these amazing stories of women that come to us with babies where God actually rescued this baby, like they tried to have an abortion and something happened. Even in one case, now in the area where we are in Ethiopia, all the doctors do abortion, all the gynecologists do abortions. There's no pro-life movement. We are the pro-life movement. And so one of the doctors actually said to this girl, I don't want to do this abortion. You're too far along and you just need to go somewhere and have your baby. And so it's been just these amazing stories about how God has rescued these children too.
Yeah, what an amazing blessing to have Marcie Erickson on with us today, sharing some of her story and good work. Grace Foundation, GraceCenterFoundation.org, GraceCenterFoundation.org. Pray, support the good work however you can. Just absolutely phenomenal. So glad to know that you're out there doing the good that you're doing, Marcie, and your staff and everybody. God bless you. God bless your family. Thank you for being on with us today.
Thank you. It's been a blessing to be with you.
All right. Again, GraceCenterFoundation.org. You can learn more about the good work there as well. But pray and work is what we're called to. So certainly pray for this good work. And if you can support it with any gift, GraceCenterFoundation.org. God bless you.